Many people are stepping through life believing that their story will always hold them back in some way. And I can totally relate because I have been there too, believe me. What I wish I had in those moments was a reference point, someone or something to help me believe that even the darkest parts of my story was shaping me into the person I was always meant to be. Nowadays, as a international speaker, entrepreneur, and husband to the most amazing woman, I've made it my mission to help you own your story so that you can live a life of impact, influence, and inspiration. I'm Winston Ben Clements, and this is Born to Win. Wow, I cannot believe I'm actually finally launching this podcast. It feels like it's my most talked about topic for the last maybe 5-6 months. So excited to be here, excited to do this, and I'm just gonna jump straight into what I want to talk about today. And I think today being the first episode of Born to Win, I'm just gonna keep it. It's gonna be a bit of an introduction session, get to know each other a little bit, and then I'll also be sharing with you guys, some of my hopes and I guess dreams for this platform. So, some of you have met me, others haven't. So I'm just gonna share a quick story. And so my name is Winston, and perhaps a slightly interesting thing about me is I was born with a condition known as Osteogenesis Imperfecta, which is a super mouthful, I know, but it's just a medical term for a genetic bone condition known as brittle bones disorder. And in simple terms, what that meant is I just have these bones that break much easier than the average person. So, if I was to fall over, I'm just more likely to have a fracture than you might, for example. And so why this is interesting is it also impacts in how I look. So if you've seen, or when you do get to see an image of me, you notice that I'm quite small. I'm probably about 3 feet tall. I use a wheelchair to get around. And so what I always say to people is once you see Winston, you cannot unsee him. Like I definitely stand out in those rooms that I roll into. But, today's not going to be the full version of my story. I'm going to be diving into different aspects over the next coming months and years, hopefully. But I just wanted to give you that quick framing because, I think it's an important point. There's an important point there about owning your story, which is a really big part of what I hope people will be able to take away from this platform. And speaking of stories, so, what I do nowadays is I'm a speaker, a global keynote speaker. So I've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. I do leadership training and also do a lot of work around inclusion and diversity. So these are truly my passion areas. And, it's been exciting to see some of the benefit that has come to these organizations that I've had the opportunity to work with. And funny enough, when I'm on the platform or nowadays on Zoom, because everything is happening online nowadays, one of the most commonest, is that a word? It is now. One of the most common questions I get is, hey Winston, what's been your biggest challenge? Because I guess people can imagine, like I said, from looking at me, little guy in a wheelchair, has had a lot of, I guess, broken bones and trauma. He must have had a lot of challenges. And actually for me, above and beyond the physical, it's more of a mental shift that I've been fortunate to start to experience, because when I was younger, I think there were points in my life when I subscribed to the idea that, my life was going to be basically extremely limited, because I didn't really have a reference point to see anyone who looked remotely like me doing some of the things that I secretly dreamt of doing, right? So I was secretly dreamt of, traveling, secretly dreamt of working for the biggest corporations, and just having an impact and being known, right? And the reason why those dreams stayed a secret most of the time was because when I looked on in the media, when I looked in, in the mainstream, there were no other little guys in wheelchairs doing the kind of stuff that I wanted to do, right? And I guess a shift that I've started to experience now is, you know, through just breaking down those barriers one at a time. And of course there were failures, of course there were challenges. And by the way, this podcast is going to be super open. I'm going to be sharing with you, both sides, or all sides of the apple, not just the shiny side. But what you start to see, or what you start to experience over time, was actually collecting evidence that you can achieve some of these things that are hoped for in secret. So I did work with some of the biggest companies. I am, like I said, now, in blessed to share my story and to do public speaking, which I love so much. And so my message, I actually hesitate on being called a motivational speaker, because for me, motivation alone is not enough, right? So motivation when I was younger, like I said, wasn't enough to make me, it got me excited, about my dreams and things that I wanted to achieve. But at the same time, I still had the limitation, because like I said, I didn't really have any reference points. I didn't see anyone else doing it, right? So motivation alone is not enough. It's a feeling, right? What for me trumps motivation is action, right? So taking the action. So for me, that looked like, applying for those jobs at the bigger corporates, right? When I graduated from uni. Later on, it looked like public speaking. And by the way, guys, I'm a massive introvert. Like, don't let, all of this stuff fool you. And the fact that I speak on stage to large groups. By nature, I'm a massive introvert. And so for me, as I started to take the action, take the steps, get on those platforms, initially to 10 people, and then progressing to 50, 100, and now being fortunate to do thousands, right? It gave me evidence with each step that actually, basically, your dreams are valid, right? And as you start to collect that evidence, if I can do it in front of 10 people, then maybe 20 people or 50 people isn't such a stretch, right? And so for me, evidence trumps motivation, but you can only collate and collect evidence once you take action, right? And so, going back to owning your story, because this is, for me, if you're to take away just one thing from our platform, I'd just love for everyone who's listening to this right here, right now, to just to be able to embrace and own their story. And, that can look like many different things to different people. And we all have, how do you say it? We all have, I guess, demons, right? Like things about our stories the things that don't make it on the Instagram grid, right? Or the limiting beliefs that we all harbor. Like I said, I had my own limiting beliefs when I was younger, right? But with owning your story, it's not an easy thing to do, because first of all, you have to face that demon, right? That it's no longer a case of, I'm not sure I can do it as a public speaker, so I'm going to try something else. It's, I'm not sure I can do it, and I'll probably be really bad to begin with, but I'm going to put myself forward anyway. That is facing your demon, right? And again, just because you face your demon, it's not a Cinderella story. It's not a guaranteed happy ending. You might fail the first time, right? You might be terrible at playing the guitar the first time you try it, or terrible, or your business might fail the first time you do it, right? But for me, the powerful thing that you get from doing that is it's basically data, right? You get data on where you need to improve, where you need to adjust, which then hopefully, as you make those 1% adjustments over time, you start to see better results, you start to collect more evidence, and then that compounded with your motivation, for me, are some of the things that have helped me see progress, massive progress in a short space of time. And I'll definitely be diving a bit more into my speaking business and how I went from full-time employed into doing what I do now, what I love, and basically building a lifestyle on my own terms. And then the other thing about today, so today is actually a really special day because it's actually the start of Disability History Month here in the UK. So there might be some people listening abroad, but here in the UK, this is a very special month for honoring and celebrating and just creating an awareness around people with disabilities. So we have a whole month for this. But the thing is about Disability History Month, I don't actually think it's talked about enough. So, we hear about other communities, other demographics, and I guess other different types of celebrations. So, I'm recording this in November, coming straight after Black History Month here in the UK, which runs through October. And I'm Black as well, so that's an important celebration for my community. But I can't say that many people in my network or people have shown the same level of awareness around Disability History Month. So for me, it's really important to highlight that today. So Disability History Month, just to give you a quick rundown, it's a bit of an interesting one because it doesn't run through the course of 1 month. So it's not like, Black History Month, which runs from 1st of October to the 31st of October. UK Disability History Month runs from mid-November to mid-December, right? And the dates do tend to vary from year on year. And so within that month, there are actually a couple of other celebrations that are encompassed in that month. So, like I said, mid-November to mid-December, but on the 1st of December, we also have HIV and AIDS Day. So that's an important celebration. We also have on the 3rd of December, we also have the International Day for People with Disabilities. So of course that is directly related to Disability History Month. And I believe it's on the 10th of December, we would, here in the UK, have the International Human Rights Day. So you have all of these celebrations. And so that, I guess the idea was to wrap Disability History Month around these things because they are in some way related to that cause of, I guess, equality for people with different abilities. And of course, I'm biased, like I shared a little bit with my story when I touched on it earlier. I have a disability. I use a wheelchair. And so I have an appreciation for some of the challenges and some of the unconscious biases that people in my demographic, my community have to handle every single day. But more than that, more than just championing my own cause, I think it's also important with the way things are in the world at the moment. I feel like we could all do, and this is me going on, a bit of a spiel perhaps, but I feel like we could all do with a little bit more, just a little bit more empathy, a little bit more empathy. And not just with causes that we're aligned with because, we were directly affected or, belonging to those communities, but other causes as well. So just all around empathy, right? And I believe if we were able to all increase that empathy just a little bit more, the ultimate effect of that would be a far more fairer society, a far more equal society would hopefully start to lift some of the what can seem sometimes like a dark cloud, especially with the way things are, with the politics and everything else that we have to handle day to day, right? So Disability History Month, if you don't know much about it, then I'll definitely put a link in the show notes. Definitely read up about it. Definitely, reach out to someone if you know someone in your community, in your network, perhaps who might benefit from hearing about this, and definitely share it with them. Because I think it's important we champion all causes, like I said, right? All causes pertaining to equality should be championed because they are what create this better world that we all want. Okay, cool. Anyway, I feel like I've gone 100 miles per hour, but like I said, today was just more of a introduction. Just wanted to kind of give you a flavor of Winston, who I am, a bit about my story. And by the way, that was, the 1% version. There's definitely so much more unpacking to do, and I'm just excited to share with you all sides, and all the experiences that have helped me shape, that have helped shape me to the person I've become, so that hopefully you can begin to also embrace your story, to own it, so that you can live a life of impact, influence, and inspiration. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And by the way, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or some other kind of app, and you got some value from today's episode, then I'd absolutely love if you could drop me a quick review. Until next time.